Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name's James. Hello, everyone.
It's a Thursday after the FA Cup. We're not going to talk about the FA Cup, James, because we're
Thank
going to have
God.
to do that on Tottenham for the patrons later on today. If you are one of our patrons, you probably have a treat in store later. But and if you're not one of our patrons, it might be worth signing up because
Yes, I've just got back from Sheffield. Congratulations to our Blades listeners. Thoroughly deserved. Oh my God. I think I might be beyond the rant. We probably should have done it about midnight last night, I think. And I should have got my dad on with me as well.
Oh, do you know what? That's a fantastic idea for a pod. Sometimes we get Planet FPL wifey on you do on Patreon pods. Planet FPL daddy. Oh yes, father. We'll call him father. Planet FPL father is definitely an episode that we need to record for the patrons at some point. But for a lot of the regular listeners, I get asked not that often, what's the optimum chip strategy? And I tell people generally, I wait till we record a pod and James figures it out and tells me what to do. And I know your catchphrase, James, is always play it your way, but I do play it James's way. But yeah, today we are talking about chips and all of that kind of thing because the FA Cup, whatever round, the fifth round is over. Is it fifth round? Yeah, fifth round is over. We now know what the quarterfinals look like and have an idea on the semi-finals as well. But bizarrely, surprisingly, only 4 Premier League teams left in the tournament out of 8 means that this is the weirdest year for FPL in terms of blanks and doubles that we've had for quite a long time, buddy.
Yeah, we just said off camera that I think on blank game week FA Cup final weekend, since we've been doing the pods, I think the most fixtures we've had is 5. We had a couple of years ago where it would only been 3, but they managed to squeeze Villa and Tottenham, which was a postponed fixture, into there to make it 4. To get to 7 is quite remarkable. The fact that you've even got 4 Premier League teams only remaining, 2 of them are scheduled to play each other. In Brighton and Manchester United in game week 28 has obviously gone as well. So we've got 7 fixtures now in game week 28. It's absolutely remarkable. We can confirm that because Manchester United and Fulham have drawn each other, it will be at least 1 blank in game week 32. But it could be only one. And yeah, and obviously in 32, Brighton and Man City meant to play each other. So the chances are at the moment, game week 32 will have 8 fixtures, which is remarkable. So, I mean, in essence, we're going to cover it off, obviously, but big doubles at the end. I mean, there's a chance game week 29 will have more doubles than what's left.
Well,
afterwards,
yes,
between 34 and 37.
We'll get into a little bit of the chip talk in a second. Just let's wrap up game week 20, whatever it was. Is it 25 that's just finished? Yes, 25.
Yes.
The blank double that ended last night with Arsenal's comfortable 4-0 win over Everton. They must be looking at it now, thinking 13 games to go, 5-point lead. It's touching distance for these guys now. But yeah, very solid, comprehensive 4-0 for them. 2-0 for Liverpool at Wolves. So those that went with Salah captain in the double game week did end up picking up a return in the end yesterday. Those that went with Saka, double return yesterday, very tidy as well. There were some monster scores in the end popping around.
Yeah, which is ironic considering obviously going into sort of Sunday, it was like, oh, I took all these hits for these Liverpool players. And other than probably Darwin Núñez and Gakpo, most of them have come out of it well. I mean, in terms of the Arsenal players, just about everybody, isn't it? I know most people were probably on free Arsenal anyway. The big winners from the Arsenal perspective would be Martinelli owners.
Yes,
26 points. Massive.
Yeah.
And you were a big winner, Suj, because am I right in saying you bought Virgil van Dijk because you couldn't afford to buy Trent?
No, I bought Virgil van Dijk because I couldn't afford to buy Robertson.
Unbelievable.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could have maneuvered my situation if I really wanted to get Robertson. But the reason I was comfortable with Van Dijk because he was cheaper and I wanted him to sit there throughout. I would have had no money to maneuver any other changes otherwise, transfers and stuff. So I was comfortable with Van Dijk because he was there as tick along until the end of the season, really, if need be, because of what Liverpool have in terms of doubles and fixtures. But if you'd have said to me he's going to get maximum bonus points in both games, score a goal and 2 clean sheets, I would have been, I would have said you're lying. So 24 points from Van Dijk has basically covered me off not having Martinelli, who I'd let go. I captained Saka, which was 30 points. Odegaard's goal yesterday kind of, I would say, redeems him. He's not been very explosive or in the points in either formats of the games in the last few weeks, but 11-pointer there. Salah's just 11-pointer, but his ownership's pretty high. Ben White, 13 points. So the double game week players that I had, the 5 of them, did fantastically well. Haaland 10, Kane 6, 109 points, -4. So leaves me net 105. But it's a game week rank of like 417,000. So there's
what are you up to overall? About 200.
225. 225.
Good.
I'm kind of surprised, to be honest. I thought I'd still be hovering around 500,000. But from 840k in game week 20, I'm up to 225 now. I have no idea what shape my team is in for the chips and doubles now.
It's time to understand.
But I haven't got triple Liverpool. I've only got double.
Okay. That's good. Well done. Good week. I finished on 97 -4. Returns for me, Ben White and Trent both 13, Salah 11, Captain Saka 30, Odegaard 11, Haaland 10. Those that were covering up the singles, Ward, Andreas and Nonto, 4 points between them on top of Haaland's 10. Bueno with a 3-pointer, and understand he might have done his hamstring last night. I must confess, people saying, you're going to go in detail on the 2 games last night. I've literally only seen 1 goal from last night's games, and I can absolutely assure you that I wish I hadn't seen that fucking goal at Bramall Lane last night. So I can't give you any insight into those 2 games last night. I've had my head completely getting ready for this podcast. So, I mean, let me give you an example. So for me, going into game week 28 now, you could look at it now and go, right, well, I've got Ward's now got a double. Okay. Got a fixture. White's got a fixture. Saka Odegaard takes me up to 4. Obviously, Nonto and Bueno got fixtures now, but Bueno could be done for a while. Nonto's place in the team's a little bit iffy. The 2 Newcastle lads have got Trippier and Botman have got a fixture, but I'd be looking at it going, I'm definitely not getting the best of what I want there in 28 or 29 or 27 before. I would literally be clawing. I could almost guarantee that if I don't do anything now, I'm red arrow 27, 28, 29, and they could be big red arrows. So for me, it's quite straightforward. I mentioned on my Suj James stream last Friday morning, I explained then before these cut results that game week 26 wildcard was very much on mind. And I was a bit disappointed that Leicester lost on Tuesday night against Blackburn, because Fulham winning was absolutely enough for me. With Leicester winning, it just became, everybody else is thinking this as well now. And then last night, I mean, I'd said to you plenty of times, and awareness that we'd lost at Middlesbrough last year, that there was definitely going to be a big challenge on for us at Bramall Lane. But I don't think any of us factored in Southampton losing to Grimsby as well. Shout out again to FPL Mariner. I know he went to the game. Incredible. Brilliant. That's an amazing achievement for a League Two team to get to FA Cup quarter-final. So none of us factored in the probability that Southampton and Tottenham would go ahead. So the Saints have now got double 27 and fixture 28 against Tottenham. Admittedly, don't double 29. And obviously, Kane has got a fixture now in 28. He's arguably captainable in the week, possibly all of a sudden. And we never really thought, I don't think any of us could have foreseen that Southampton would lose to Grimsby and that fixture would go on. So we're now in a position where we've got 7 games confirmed for game week 28. Man City and West Ham is off. Liverpool, Fulham is off. Brighton and Manchester United is off. Everything else is on. So initial reaction, Suj. How do you think you're shaped up for the 27 doubles, the 28 blank, and the 29 doubles?
So 27 doubles badly.
I've got nothing.
I've only got Ferguson, and yeah, that's not like a locked in player that definitely will play 2 games in that. So I've got nothing for the 27 double. For the 28 blank. I've got 2 Man City, so that's 2 out. I've got Rashford, so that's 1 out. I've got rid of all of my other Man United. I don't have any West Ham. I've got 2 Liverpool in Van Dijk and Salah, so that's 5 players, and that's 2 Liverpool, Rashford, Haaland, and Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis is take it or leave it. So 5 players out basically.
So
and Brighton, and Ferguson.
Yeah, so he won't play. And obviously, if you buy Brighton this week, it's going to only add to that total, right?
4, 5, 6. Yeah, I've got 6 out in 28.
Thing is, I asked this question on Twitter earlier, and there's so many people responded, and I'm really glad, because if you go on the Bird app at the moment, it does feel like everybody's either going to wildcard this week or next week. So it was nice to see so many people respond and say, well, no, actually, this is best for me at the moment, and actually give their reasoning as to why. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all those reasoning, but you said it at the start, play it your own way. It will feel right now like everybody is about to wildcard. I don't think that's quite the case. Look at game week 25. There was 600,000 free hits used. And I know there were people in the community we spoke about. Tom Cantor was a great example because he was already really loaded up on Brighton Brentford. It was the right thing for him to do. But for the majority of people, didn't free hit in game week 25. And I don't think the scale of wildcards this week or next week will be quite as big for the whole game as what people actually think. I think a lot of the engaged players and a lot of the content creators are going to do it. Going to either wildcard this week or next week. And that's, again, they're subject to how your teams land. And of course, naturally, that is going to have an influence on what other people do. I mean, you joked about it, but you probably will wildcard based on what I'm about to say, Suj.
Well, the other thing is, I'm looking at game week 29, James, which is the big double. I'm assuming you're working towards a bench boost in 29?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 2 teams that sit top of the table at the moment, Arsenal and City, have a single game week that week. City, Liverpool at home, meh, I'll take it. I've got is Haaland anyway. Rico Lewis, I'd expect to be gone by the time we get to that point. So I've only got Haaland. That's a single game week. I'd probably keep him for the single game week. I don't know what your thoughts are around that.
I don't think. I mean, in that week, you don't
Liverpool
have to
at home.
You don't have to have 15 doublers. I mean, I guarantee you now there will be people who will bench boost in game week 29, and their bench will be a goalkeeper with a double, Saka, Haaland, Kane.
So yeah, Leeds at home for
Saka.
Arsenal. Like, I'm happy with the 3 of them because that's a good fixture. Kane away at Everton. I'm happy with this fixture. So yeah, this is one where the players that I've got for like Kane, the City players, and the Arsenal players, even though it's a single game week, might outperform some of these double game week players. So yeah, I'm not sure, James, really here. I'm quite happy with my team. Why would I then not? If I'm happy with my team for the double in 29, or the majority of it, let's say, then I can free hit in 28 to cover off the blanks.
Yeah.
And I don't need to wildcard right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, under that circumstance, you're probably going heavy to Brighton for 27.
In terms of the transfers I'm making right now.
The reality is as well, it depends how happy you are, right? You said you've got kind of 5 problems basically for, say, 28 now, right? But how much of the rest of the team are you happy with? It's all right saying, and I see this a lot, people say, I can get to 10 in game week 28. Great. Brilliant. That's fine. You don't have to have 11 in game week 28. But what are those 10? If you're sitting there like I am now with Bueno possibly popped his hamstring, got Nonso away to Wolves, don't know if he's going to play or not. You got like Nico Williams like you've got, for example, Suj, when Aurea might be back. I mean, like, can you improve this now is the point. So I think it's not, people get a bit focused on numbers, I think, quite a lot. You don't have to, it's not so much the numbers, it's the what. It's the who. Yeah. So for me, if I wildcard now, I mean, who would I actually keep? Saka, definitely. Haaland, not necessarily for me, by the way. Rashford would definitely stay. I would maybe keep Odegaard with a view to move him on in 29 in any case, and I'd keep Trippier. So I'm probably making 10 change, minimum 9. That's enough to be in wildcard territory.
Okay.
for me. So that won't be for everybody. Again, even all I'm going to be doing is chasing other people's shadows. So 27 I've got like no Brighton Brentford, so I'm just going to be chasing. 28, I haven't got the best of it. And because of, if I don't free hit then, which doesn't feel necessary for me personally, if I don't cover it off properly, like there's teams there I'm going to be overlooking, like Villa, Chelsea, potentially, etc., who've got great fixtures because of, I've got to focus on doubles. Plus, once I invest in Brighton and I don't want to sell Trippier and Rashford, I'm actually probably removing players from my squad who have got a fixture in game week 28. Only bench 3 outfield players. And I'm definitely not going to have the best of 29 in terms of what's there as well. So it's absolutely best for me. And I think the other really important thing from my perspective is that I believe I can wildcard now, manipulate 27, 28 and 29 without using a free hit, and use the free hit later on at a time of my convenience. And that's probably dependent on those cup quarterfinal results, because if suddenly Man City and Brighton went out and Fulham beat Manchester United and the only blank in 32 is Fulham v Leeds, I don't need to do anything, do I? No one does. So I could sit here now and go, I'm free hitting 32. That's the right thing. And it probably will be the right thing for me. But you get more cup shocks, not necessarily. And I think really importantly, what we can do is have a clear understanding of who's likely to double in 34 and 37 and maneuver our teams towards those players. So basically, the FA Cup quarterfinal draw is Manchester United got Fulham at home, right? So United are probably the one that's probably at most at jeopardy, but we'd fancy them at home to Fulham in a cup quarterfinal. It will be 3 days after Europa League semi-final, admittedly, but we'd make them favourites, particularly at home. We have to. City will obviously be big favourites against Burnley. Burnley have been fantastic in the Championship this season. They will give Man City a proper game. I think Man United fans who played them in the League Cup will be able to tell you that.
Vincent Kompany's going to want to... No,
of course
he's not going to want to do one over on his own.
There's a narrative.
That's it. But there is you still want to go there and win. Like there's the added spice to it, let's say.
But none of us are going to sit here and go, I think Burnley will win, right?
No.
If there's some Clarets fans listening, good luck to you. I wish you all the best. And you've got Brighton at home to Grimsby. Now, Grimsby just caused a major shock at Southampton. Do we think they're going to cause a major shock at the Amex? Probably not. Again, so I think we can work on the basis of projecting quite easily that City, United and Brighton will be the 3 Premier League teams in the FA Cup semi-final. The 4th quarter-final was Sheffield United against Blackburn, right? It's 2 championship teams. Should have been Tottenham, but didn't deserve to be. So with that in mind, and considering they've already got games obviously postponed from game week 28, we can work on the assumption and project that those 3 teams will all double in 34 and 37.
Mm-hmm.
Agree?
Yeah.
The order of which way round those fixtures happen for those 3 teams, I think is not important. So Brighton's rearranged games will be Man City and Man United. Does it really matter which way round they go to people? Man United's will be Chelsea at home and Brighton away. Does it really matter to people which way round they'll be? Man City's would be West Ham at home and Brighton away. The one that might matter most for people, therefore, is actually the ones who've still got their triple captaincy left. Because I think in that event, 34 for the West Ham fixture would look better for Haaland, give him a double of Fulham and West Ham. That's probably the best one left for those who have still got the TC chip. But it's not a huge difference. We suddenly go, shit, it's City against Brighton in that week instead. I'm not going to load up on City players. I think if you wildcard in 33, if those 3 teams win in the FA Cup quarterfinals and you're wildcard in 33 and you know they've both got 2 doubles, and in Brighton's case, it could be 3 doubles, the chances are you're probably going to get 9 players from those 3 teams. Fair?
Oh, yep.
Then it's just a case of where Liverpool-Fulham lands is the other important fixture, because obviously Liverpool could have a good double. You could certainly make the case, perhaps, game week 37, if Liverpool going all out for top 4, that if Liverpool got Villa at home and Fulham at home in 37, you might say, that's a great week for triple captaincy. If it landed like that, we'd probably all be captain Mo Salah at the end of the season. But the point, I think, in terms of manoeuvring through for those who are wildcarding now and not using chips is, I'm going to have Brighton. That's fairly obvious. I intend to have 3 Manchester United in game week 29. So when I come out of game week 29, I'm probably going to be on the position of 3 Manchester United and 3 Brighton already. And I may have Haaland as well. So I've already got 7 of that core 9 wanted. And then I can just build from there to City and Liverpool's swing if Liverpool play in 34. Because Liverpool do have a really good swing of fixtures after they play Arsenal in 30. And obviously, I could choose to have 1 or 2 now if I want. They double in 29. One key point, I think, for those wildcarding in 33. And of course, if it's the right thing for you, go ahead and do it by all means. Please, please, please draft what your bench boost would look like in 34 if you're going to wildcard in 33, if that's your intention. Please draft it. And the reason I say that very, very strongly is I assume most people, if Manchester United, Liverpool and City all double in that week, will go Haaland, Fernandes and Salah as 3 premiums. We know 3 premiums can work. And that's because people like Rashford enable that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just have a check on yourself on the affordability of the others. Because if you're going free Liverpool at that point, and you will want to, I think, if they double in 34, because they'll have a double of Tottenham at home and Fulham at home, 2 games at Anfield. So you start looking at Darwin Núñez's, Trent's, Robertson's. And again, you can do that. But then what are you affording from Man City? Can you squeeze in Luke Shaw as well? And as part of your bench boost, who's actually going on it? Are you going to be relying on the Brighton players? West Ham, if West Ham have a double in that week, what includes a fixture at Man City, great. If Fulham double includes playing, Fulham will play Man City and Liverpool. All right, great. You can have the likes of Manor Solomon if he continues his form as part of a bench boost. But I just ask people to physically, and if you've done it and you're happy with it, great, crack on. I just ask people who intend to go down that strategy, use a tool like FPL.team, look ahead at the projections, and just see actually if you can afford what you truly want, because I think it will be quite tight. So for us chasing, it will be difficult for us to get to the position where we're able to have all the best players as well. But I think even those wildcarding, if Liverpool double in 34, may struggle. And if they double in 37, they may struggle to maneuver from other teams to get to what they want Liverpool anyway. I just think financially it'd be quite difficult. For some of you, you may have super team value, etc. You may have had like Haaland, Rashford, the like sitting there all season. It may work. I think for most people, it won't be affordable. I drafted a wild card for that week to sense check myself. And it's very, very tough. You have to start making sacrifices. And before you know it, you've gone, actually, I'm gonna even start scrimping here from Brighton and going, Evan Ferguson. And I'll go Areola in goal because Fabianski's injured and he's got a double. Oh, yeah, one of them's away to Man City. And it just looks tough for me. I think that's really important. If you go down that route and you draft it and you're happy, proceed. The other problem, of course, is if you commit to this strategy and those cup results do not go to plan, and you have shocks like Fulham winning at Old Trafford and Burnley winning at Man City, then what? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. In terms of where the fixtures go, can't tell you. I genuinely can't. Last year, I was able to sit here and kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and map it out for you. All I could say right now is I think the most logical thing is that the game postponed from 28 going to 34 and the games postponed from 32 going to 37. Likely postponed in 32 is Brighton and Manchester United. Is obviously extremely likely. Manchester United are scheduled to play Chelsea. If it's Fulham instead, they're scheduled to play Leeds. So it's most likely those 3 fixtures will go to 37 and the fixtures from 28 will go into 34. However, a note on this. If you think about it logically, Suj, we'd probably likely to have 2 games postponed from 32. Would you agree with that? Brighton, Man City, Man United, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Now, the way they've scheduled the TV picks in the final weekend of April, which includes Leicester against Everton, Monday the 1st, people might have heard me speak about concern about Brentford-Leicester, which obviously doesn't matter anymore. Basically, they can't put any of the postponed games on the Tuesday night in that midweek. So they can only show 2 games live. And you might be in a position here where they've only got 5 games to physically rearrange. 6 if you include the third Brighton one, but they can't all go into 34, 37. We'll come on to what will probably happen with the Brighton-Newcastle fixture. So if they decide they want to show all of those 5 games that get postponed, it could be that the 32 postponements go into 34, which would just be 4 teams doubling then. So that'd be United, Chelsea, Brighton, Man City. And the 28 postponements would individually go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in game week 37. I can't tell you what they're going to do. I really don't know. What I can tell you is I think we will know what game week 34 looks like before game week 29 starts. And that might be quite important for those who are obviously considering a wild card in game week 29, which I know from feedback, there are a lot still looking at that. Maneuver 27, 28, wild card 29, get the best of that and also set it to potentially bench boost or run through 34, etc. I don't know. There's not a science. All I can tell you is the way it looks is United, Brighton and Man City will double in all 3 of those weeks. And because of that, if you're wildcarding 33 and you've got a team's double 34 and an extra fixture 37, it's difficult to look beyond those assets, I think. Particularly when Brighton ones are obviously, they're all enablers, right? In the Brighton squad. The Newcastle-Brighton fixture, Suj, I think they were hoping that Tottenham would probably get to the FA Cup semi-finals, and if they were, that was probably fallacy, and Brighton would go out and the fixture could have squeezed into game week 32. That no longer is possible because Newcastle and Tottenham will now definitely go ahead in game week 32. So Newcastle-Brighton could go anywhere. The reason it has to currently be Newcastle versus Brighton rather than Brighton against Man City or Man United is because City and United, if they continue in Europe, there's no spare weeks. It's not physically possible. So if one of them comes out of Europe, say Manchester United lose in, I think they've got Betis, haven't they, in the last 16 of the Europa League, then in theory, yeah, sure, Brighton Man United could go into a 31 or a 35 instead, for example. But if City and United keep progressing in Europe, it has to be the Newcastle game. And obviously, the later they leave it, the more likely it's to be the Newcastle game. I think the marginal favourite for Newcastle-Brighton is possibly game week 31. The spacing is better between 31 and 32 for those 2 clubs than it is between 30 and 31. That's it. That's the only logic in it. It could easily be 35, 36 instead. And obviously, like I said, if United or City go out of Europe, it opens up the prospect for Newcastle v Brighton to go into 34 or 37 instead. Essentially, in terms of the rearranged game, that's it. It's not.
When do you think we'll know what 34, 37 look like? By the time we get to 32?
I think, no,
after 32?
I think 34 will know before 29. Okay. The reason I think that is the last TV announcement they did, what was it, last Tuesday? When it feels like a lot's happened in a small period of time, where they announced the 29 midweek fixtures. I didn't think they needed to do that, personally. But it looks like they took the process of saying, right, we're going to announce all the April TV fixtures, so we've got to announce them now. They're regretting how many games they put into April in that game with 29. Trust me. If they'd known what was going to happen with Leicester, Tottenham, Southampton,
yeah, I mean, you can't predict the future, right?
Of course you can't.
But they could have waited. That's what they could have done, is waited.
Well, I certainly think they could have waited till now. Yeah,
exactly.
And listen, for the FPL managers, it's obviously great to have the information. And I think that's another thing, by the way, that's influenced more of the Wildcard 26 thinking. When did we get the fixtures? Last Tuesday. I started tweeting about it last Friday. That we didn't really think we were going to get the April midweek fixtures for 29 that soon, I don't think. But because of that announcement, basically, during the international break, which is between game week 28 and 29, they're scheduled to make 2 further TV announcements. In the first week of the break, they're scheduled to announce game week 35 TV picks. And in the second week, they're scheduled to announce the game week 36 picks. Why are they doing that in 2 separate periods? I couldn't tell you, because there's nothing over that period that can change. There's no club fixtures, so I don't know what difference it makes. But that makes me think that that's the point where they announced the game week 35 fixtures, that they also do the game week 34 midweek fixtures as well. And that's just off the basis of their last choices. Can I guarantee you that's going to happen? No. But based on what they've just done, I think there's reasonable expectation to think we will know what 34 looks like before game week 29. And obviously, once you know what 34 looks like, 37 is obvious, isn't it? It can only be what's left.
Here's my so if we're talking up until the end of game week 29 at the moment, my order of problems, James, is game week 28 first. I actually have 7 players missing from that. I forgot Pereira. So
It's easily done. That's what I'm talking about. Like, he's,
so Van
it's not a
Dijk,
big deal even if he did have a fixture.
Van Dijk, Rashford, Salah, Ferguson, Haaland, Rico Lewis, Andreas Pereira. 7 players that don't have a fixture in game week 28. I need to fix that problem. I've got 2 solutions for that, right? Which is Wildcard Now and get some of these guys out and bring in players that can play. My second thing is less of a problem, is game week 27. I only have 1 doubler right now. So I've got 2 transfers between now and then. I could take a hit. I could get myself up to 4 doublers, depending on how I want to maneuver it. But I do need to lose one of Salah or Kane because I need to free up some funds.
So again, that's a perfect one where it's like, it's dependent what you do, right? Because Salah's got a 29 double, although it's not great, City and Chelsea away. Whereas Kane, he's arguably a captainable asset in 28 away to Southampton.
I'm more likely to keep Kane because I think Kane in Everton away in 29 could easily outscore Salah in his 2 fixtures. Easily.
Possible.
And then game week 29 is my third problem, the least of my problems, because as it stands right now, I've got plenty of doubles in game week 29, but the guys that have got single game week fixtures, Arsenal, Arsenal, Kane against Everton and Haaland. Like I don't care about having doublers in those situations. So to give myself a decent bench boost, all I need to do is fix the Lewis, Pereira and Nico Williams. So actually, I could fix all of my problems by wildcarding now, but by using 1 chip right now in the wildcard. Using the wildcard right now would fix my 28 problem, would fix my 27 problem if I buy players that play in have a double in 27 and play in 28 and have a double in 29. And will give me a couple more doublers in 29, which is, I need 2 more really. So a wild card right now would solve all 3 of those game week problems. It would give me a free hit to use later in the season if I didn't use my free hit in game week 28. And that I could use in 34, 37 when I just pile into a doublers if there's a decent opportunity to do so. So I think that's what I'm looking at, James, is actually, if I wildcard now, but I don't think it'll be a revolutionary wildcard in the same way.
No, there's a lot of people going to do it now, aren't they? So
yeah, no, as in, I mean revolutionary in that I don't think I'm going to get rid of that many players from my team.
But does it make your team much better? And I mean, look, we're what, final third of the season now, basically. We've got 13 weeks to go, roughly. So call it roughly a third of the season left to go. Are you happy to look at the next possibly 4 weeks and go red, 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 red?
I don't have a problem in 26, James. My team looks all right for game week 26.
Okay, well, that's fine. Mine doesn't. Mine looks shocking.
Why?
Yeah. I've got 5 Liverpool and United players playing each other, of which there's 3 Liverpool rather than 3 United.
I've got 3. I've just got Rashford, Salah and Van Dijk.
Okay. So I've got 5 playing against each other. I've got double Newcastle defence going away to Man City.
Okay, I've only got a single.
My intention had been to actually play Bueno this week in any case, but he's now injured.
I don't have.
I've got Nonto. Admittedly, could go and sit on the bench, but he doesn't look good. And do you remember the one thing I said to you about 27, Suj? And this might be important to remember when you're thinking about assets for next week or buying them with next week in mind. Is 27 is good for everybody anyway. We always said this. They're a good United have got Southampton at home.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Tottenham have got Forest at home. Newcastle got Wolves at home. City play Palace. Arsenal play at Fulham without Paulinho, right? Chelsea go to Leicester is okay if people have gone down that route, right? So from the top 7, the big 6 plus Newcastle, if you will, right? They've all got good fixtures in 27. Interestingly, by the way, there's a lot of good fixtures in 34 from players who may carry through from people's 29 bench boost. So again, I'll give you examples. Newcastle are at home to Southampton. Brentford are at home to Nottingham Forest. Leicester at home to Everton. So it might even be like for those wildcard in 33, I think if you're looking at the bench boost, you might be just as much looking at some of those teams. And they're good. And people like Botman, I don't know, Wout Fass, if it's a thing at the time when it comes round or whatever. These players can be considered some of your enabling players, for example. And it's really interesting to factor in. So 27, I'm conscious. Like if I wasn't wildcard in the next 2 weeks, I'd kind of be a little bit kind of take it or leave it on Brighton Brentford in depending on what I was going to do in 28 and 29 respectively. Like if you're free hitting 28, Brighton's not as big a deal for you, right? If you're free hitting in 29, then Brentford is more important for you in 28, right? So it depends on the knock-on of your strategy to what you do next week. But most people, whether they're wild card or not, are probably going to have a decent game week 27 team, I would suggest. But obviously, the power probably will be to those who wild card now. And I don't think you have to get 6 from Brighton Brentford. That was my original instinct, but that instinct was based on Leicester not losing, Tottenham not losing, Southampton not losing. So I'm not sure it's necessary to have 6 now, but I think to cover it off and say, I'd want a defensive player from each and an offensive player from each is probably more what I'd be looking at in terms of a bit of balance at the moment. Should we look at some just coverage of individual chips and when people might use them briefly, Suj?
Yeah, I think so.
And there's a point I want to make about game week 35. Yes, it hasn't suddenly gone away because there's an olive branch here potentially for those who want a wild card later on. Wild card. So I think you've either got now or next week. And I guess for me, it's like, I've got to do it now. For some of you, you'll be happy with what you've got next week. Wait till next week. It's perfectly
I think
reasonable.
for me, it feels like wait till next week for me. Yeah.
29, we've spoken about this. The idea that people want a wild card and get the best of doublers going through for perhaps all 3 double game weeks. Game week 33, we know will be popular. The alternative to do it is actually just do it on 34 yourself. Particularly, there will be some, I'm sure, who land in a position go, fucking hell, I'm so well set for 29. I mentioned this as a possibility. Could people be set so well for game week 29 and go, I've got a bench boost and I don't even need to use a chip, or maybe free hit 28 fixes the problem. And therefore, you might just wildcard on 34. The other one, if you manage to run through like brilliantly for some reason, and perhaps for whatever reason we've got more doubles than we're expecting right at the end, wildcard 36, bench boost 37. But I think that last one's extremely unlikely. Free hit, I think there's a lot of uses for it. You could obviously go 6 Brighton Brentford if you want. I'm not a big fan of 27 because, like I said, I think most people got good fixtures anyway. 28, the blank, 29, the double, 32, the blank. 32 is still probably going to be best for me, Suj. And the reason for that is I'm going to be trying to get to Brighton, Manchester United and Manchester City players to compete against the wild carders, and yet they're going to blank, right? So it's still going to be the right solution for me at that point currently, although that could turn on its head. It might be that for me, the best way of competing is free hit 34. And the one thing that obviously would allow, it allows you 35, 36 and 37 transfers to then go and match it. And of course, if you free hit in 34 and other people are bench boosting, you can probably really thin out your bench a lot more. And remember, I said that affordability in that week could be quite difficult. That would certainly help. You could free hit 35, which I'll come back onto, and free hit 37. I think bench boost, clear that 29 is going to have the most doubles. That's not in doubt. I've seen a few people mention bench boost 27, and I don't hate it because once you add those doubles in for the 4 teams next week, and the good fixtures that others like United, Tottenham, Arsenal, City have all got, you can quite comfortably get 15 good players for 27 as well. 34 and 37, obviously, alternatives. On triple captaincy, again, it's difficult to link it to the other ones because it's kind of an individual standalone chip. But if you haven't used it yet, and for whatever reason, that's all you've got left, I think probably the best, what I would do at the moment, I'd be hoping Haaland had Fulham and West Ham in 34. The only danger with that is, of course, it's in and around a period of Champions League fixtures and stuff if they're still in. They play Arsenal in the midweek at 33 before that. Leeds at home the weekend 35. It might be, when I factor in what I discussed with Luke on the People's Poll on Tuesday, that rest can tend to come before a Champions League game. So it's Leeds after the double. So I think that's the best of it. Alternatives, obviously, you can look at the likes of Rashford, Newcastle, Brentford, 29. Rashford's best double in terms of probabilities, possibly Bournemouth and Brighton, both away in 37, or Bournemouth away and Chelsea at home, if it gets that far. Brighton, I don't think they're overly considered for a triple captaincy. I think the idea of Trippier has possibly gone, depending on where that Brighton home fixture lands. If it was right at the end, Leicester at home, Brighton at home, and they're going for top 4, maybe that would be more of appeal. Obviously, Harry Kane, we now know, has got no double. Mo Salah, I think Tottenham at home, Fulham at home, 34 is quite nice, as would be Villa at home and Fulham at home, 37. So there's still options. It might be dependent on what you're doing. But if you were to wildcard, if say you've got everything, you've still got the triple captaincy, wildcarding now, bench boosting 29 and leaving you the options open for your free hit and your triple captaincy is going to give you the best of the choice once you've got the full picture a little bit later on. So the advice would be, if you still got it, probably hold it at the moment, actually. And if you end up taking a Hail Mary on, I don't know, Kane trying to catch Haaland in game week 38, for example, then that's what you end up doing. We hear those stories every year, people ending up using the triple captaincy in 38 because they've just never been that happy with any of the possibilities. 35 is the King's Coronation. Now, when they decided not to put Manchester City and West Ham, or at least leave it open for Manchester City and West Ham to go into 29 in the rearranged games, that sent me the message for the first time, they must be confident that there's no problem. Otherwise, I think they would have had to leave it open, because if suddenly he was taking City Leeds out, and we know, because we've had it experience in the past, that they will treat Leeds games against other big teams as high-profile games, so potentially a security risk. There was every possibility that City Leeds game would come out. Now, if City end up doubling in 34-37, which looks likely, and that Leeds game has to come out of 35, what happens? Well, the answer is, I don't know the answer.
Right.
But I think the answer is, it won't come out. So I think they'd do it in a way where they'll have to play on the Sunday, probably, or the Saturday night if City have a Tuesday Champions League game, because this was the whole point, right? If there's no games on the Saturday because of the King's Coronation, and a team plays in the Champions League on the Tuesday, what they're going to do? We know City's going to play that midweek before, and I've already told you there can't be games on that Tuesday before unless they move other fixtures back from the Sunday, to the Saturday in the weekend of 34. And I don't think they'll do that, or can't, because of the way BT have organised their fixtures in 33. If you don't believe that BT and Sky completely shaft each other, I suggest DM me and Parry, and explain it a little bit better than me. That's at Planet Sky with an I rather than an A. But I think to counter something like this, let's say they were really concerned about City Leeds. I think it still happens. Like I said, it would be like the Saturday evening or something like that. And I think we should consider the possibility now, for the first time, that some fixtures might get taken out of that weekend. What I mean by that is, there's certain fixtures like City Leeds right now, it's got to be played in 35. But because of the lack of other fixtures getting played on midweek nights, the King's Coronation is going to be in London, Suj. Why would you not try and help and just bring Tottenham and Crystal Palace forward to the Wednesday or the Thursday beforehand? So take it out of 35, where the two teams would blank, and then they double in 34. And I've realised I've probably just blown everybody's minds by saying that. But it wasn't until Tottenham lost last night that it made me realise this was a possibility. West Ham play Man United that day, Suj, or that weekend in 35. Now, again, because of United and yourselves' involvement in Europa, you can't be thumping that out and moving it anywhere. And obviously, United have got the additional fixtures. So West Ham and United would almost definitely have to stay on in 35. Tottenham and Crystal Palace is an example where you could take a little bit of pressure off here, and it's not a high-profile game, but you could certainly free up a very large resource of police officers in London on that day by just bringing the game forward to the midweek before, which can happen. Do I think it'll happen? No. Could it be an olive branch to people who suddenly go, oh, well, wildcard 33, shit, now Tottenham have got a double again? Yeah, it's a possibility. And Palace have good fixtures at the end of the season. We covered a number of times. So if Palace suddenly landed with a double there, you'd go, oh, I'm interested because I can carry their players for the rest of the season, for example. So it's just a caveat to say there might still be a little bit more in the story further down the line. It's dependent on if they're bothered or not.
Yeah,
You think that's way too far-fetched, don't you?
Yeah, I just don't think it's worth worrying about, if I'm honest with you. It's like at that point, if some buts might be maybes. So yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not that for me is like a whatever, because it'll be one or two fixtures here or there. So
I agree. But let's just say it happened. And I think most likely fixtures in that case Tottenham Palace, I think, would be the main one. Because I don't think the West Ham United game can move. So you're freeing up resource within London. If Liverpool Fulham went into 37, you could potentially move Liverpool Brentford forward a few days as well. Just think of the capacity of Anfield, etc. Transport, people traveling, Brentford fans be traveling from London, etc. There's a few games like that could maybe move. I don't think they will, but they might. And that's why I mentioned, let's just say it happened. Let's just say in theory that Tottenham Palace, Liverpool Brentford, and I don't know, Fulham Leicester's also on in London, right? Let's say they move those three fixtures into 34, hypothetically. And you've now got those three teams blanking in 35. And you've got all of a sudden, really suddenly, those extra doublers in 34, and you've still got that free hit chip in your pocket.
Yeah.
You cover whether you want to go aggressive 34 or cover the problem 35. Anyway, I don't want to speak about that anymore. I just wanted to mention it as something that, to be honest with you, it makes logical sense to me to move that Tottenham Crystal Palace game out that weekend. That's all I would say on it.
Yeah, but they don't do that.
We haven't had a monarchy coronation since the 50s, Suj.
But no, they don't do sensible things, James.
But they might if the police ask them to.
Yeah.
Think of that as well with Tottenham Palace. Let's just say they brought it forward to the Thursday. And in that case, it would be in 34. It wouldn't be in 35, right? If that's the case, you're not putting a big burden on the fans if you do it short notice. It's a London derby, right?
Yeah.
So something to keep maybe in the back of your mind. I think in overview, for the free hit, I think the advice for those who, if you just got free hit, I'd be holding on to it at the moment if you can maneuver this period. Wildcard, most people are going to do it now. The best week to bench boost, in my opinion, will be game week 29. Triple captaincy, I think it's hold it in your pocket at the moment as well. And I think it might be 34 Haaland. Right. Might be the best.
So assuming that a lot of people want a wildcard now.
Yeah.
Is there a way of going, like, how would I put it? Priority of teams that are worth picking players from if you're wildcarding now, based on obviously what we know, which is the double situation.
I think it makes sense at the moment to categorize teams in terms of what they're doing. So I'll do that for you now. So firstly, let's talk about the immediate, because it's obviously double next week. So let's look at those who've got the double next week first. So Brentford double, play 28, double 29. It's absolutely ideal for whatever you've got. The only caveat, Mr. Ivan Toney. And it's probably worth making a note on that. Tony sent his own little press release on Insta last night, didn't he? Saying he's not happy about stories coming out in the media that he's in for a 6-month ban and stuff. There was a report earlier in the week saying that he wouldn't be considered for England selection. I think people read into that the ban was imminent. I can't tell you when he's going to get banned, and I can't tell you how long he's going to be banned for. But I don't think if he gets a 6-month ban, I don't think it will be before the international break. I think it'll be afterwards. So there's also the case, by the way, I think, to sell Toney in 29, because there might be some others who've got better doubles, for example. And then Brentford come into a more difficult run afterwards. Like they've got Newcastle in game week 30. It's a case, even if you've got him sitting there as a doubler, you may want to sell. Plus, he's on the 8 yellows. So if he hits 10 before game week 32, or Brentford's 32 second fixture, which I think will be then, in fairness anyway, then he's in for a 2-game ban. don't we all know that he's getting booked against Fulham next Monday night?
Yes.
Because I think he'll probably be heavily, because it's Everton and Southampton, the two fixtures. I think he'll probably be quite heavily captained in 27. That would probably be my intention at the moment. But Brentford specifically, you know, likes of Raya, Henry, Pinnock, and Bumo, they're going to carry through this 3-week period absolutely brilliantly for you. Palace and Southampton double 27 and play 28 to cover you in the blank, but only have a single in 29. If you wanted to invest in a player from those two teams, perhaps because you were free hitting in 29, would you have a preference, Suj?
Oh,
because you can almost bet now that a Palace or Southampton player will be the highest scorer in the 27 double, because it's like they don't even exist.
truth be told, I'd like to go with
James Ward-Prowse.
Nah. If it was Sky, if we were talking about Sky, probably, but nah, I don't have a lot of faith in Southampton. I'd like to go with like Elise maybe, because there's the potential big upside, but I just don't think I could justify the money. I think I'd look at it and just say, who's the cheapest reliable playing player, and just go with Gahey or Anderson and just be done with it. I think that's probably what I would do, but it just doesn't fill me with joy. It's just like, okay, it's like necessarily evil, basically.
Yeah, I mean, look, the 3 fixtures for Palace are Man City, Brighton away, and Arsenal away. City's obviously at home in the first one, so it's nearly as rough as it can get as a 3-game span as well. But perhaps if you're wildcard in 29, you know, punting something, Wilfried Zaha's got to be close. I'll move on quickly. Brighton have the only team who got a double 27, double 29, and blank 28. So ideal for obviously those who still want a free hit in 28 to carry you through. As said as well on my projections, and I wouldn't rate it at more than sort of 25%-ish. I've got it penciled in 31 at the moment. So it could be double, blank, double, single, double. The single in there would be Tottenham away in 30. Go on, Suj, sorry.
What's your intention then with Brighton? Because you're obviously wildcarding now, and you're not going to play a chip in 28. Just one?
Probably 2 or 3.
And do what in 28? Bench them?
In 28?
Yeah, when they don't play, just bench them.
Yeah, that it's difficult, because if you take me with like Rashford, that's taking 1 spot on my bench. It might be defined. It sounds like a weird link, but whether I keep Haaland or not might define if I go 2 Brighton or 3 Brighton.
Right.
Because that would be another space on the bench, wouldn't it? So there's loads to consider from Brighton. Keep an eye out for Estupiñán potential news, because he missed the cup game and he might have an injury issue. Lewis Dunk's the same price, and the one beauty with Lewis Dunk is he will definitely play. There's little doubt on that. I'm very interested in Robert Sanchez, actually, Suj.
Okay.
It's just a probability now they're going to have 5 double game weeks over the rest of this season. And finding a combination of keepers is quite difficult. He potentially combines quite nicely with Kepa.
Right.
Actually, if you want to potentially pair that one up. Teams who play in 28 and double 29, these will be particularly popular for wildcarders at the moment. Newcastle, so I'm going to guess most people on wildcard will still keep trips, for example. Chelsea is a pain in the arse, but as you know from the quiz we did earlier this week, 4 of their next 5 fixtures are at home, which includes in the blank 1 fixture and 2 home fixtures in 29. Villa also now play 28, double 29. So do Leicester. And in terms of enabling assets, Forest, Leeds, Bournemouth as well. I've not discounted Dominic Solanke from my thinking, actually, Suj, as someone I could bench in the next couple of weeks. Villa away 28 and then 29 double. And then looking further ahead, they've got a nice little run 32 to 34, actually. I could take my pick whether I play him, start him. I'm not intending to get him, but he's not out of my thinking. And Traore, 4.5. He's one who are really struggling for the money for whatever reason. One maybe to consider as well. Leeds is difficult. It's some potentially great options there, like Somerville. It's also worth saying for those wildcarding this week, it's probably not going to be many money problems. Only if people are really pushing the boundaries. And I think you'd have to go Haaland and Kane on wildcard to even be pushing close to an issue. Because the draft that I was quite happy with on Monday had over 10 million in the bank. And I didn't have a problem with that. Teams who play in 28 but have a single in 29, there's 4 teams. That's Arsenal, Tottenham, Wolves, and Everton. I think if you go into 29 with Wolves or Everton, you'll be very tempted to bin that. I mean, most teams, even those with singles 29, we've already mentioned City, Arsenal, Tottenham, Fulham and Bournemouth play each other's okay. Crystal Palace, Leicester play each other's okay. Wolves go to Nottingham Forest. West Ham have Southampton at home. West Ham have a double, but Southampton have a single. 29 doesn't look bad for any team.
Yeah.
Not horrifically bad. I'd probably say the worst on that is probably Southampton away to West Ham. That's as bad as it probably gets, actually. Teams who blank in 28 but double in 29. There's 3 of those. That's Manchester United, Liverpool, and West Ham. I don't think we need to talk about United, Liverpool assets too much. I think Shaw, Fernandes, and Rashford will obviously be the most popular United 3. You don't necessarily have to go with 3 now. It's that as well, Suj. So now that they're not playing in 28, do I want to get like Fernandes ready for 29 rather than go with Haaland, for example? These are some of the things we have to factor in. Anyone you tip up from West Ham, Suj?
Areola, if you're part of a bench boost. Fabianski's got a fractured eye socket.
You were going to say a scratched eye, weren't you?
He's got a fractured, it's not fractured eye socket. So maybe Areola. But other than that, I mean, Ben Rama is the only other one. Maybe he's in decent form at the moment.
In the wildcard,
doesn't fill me with joy, James.
In the wildcard draft I did for 33, I had 2. I had Areola and Ings, and that was on the basis of potentially having a double in 34. Danny Ings, from the period of wildcarding now up to game week 29, feels like quite a long time for Danny Ings. It's a month, isn't it?
Yeah.
That I'd need to sit him in there. Brighton and Villa aren't the best 2 before, and then obviously there's no fixture 28. So I think Ings and West Ham, they'd be a perfect example one where it feels more like if I'm in the right place in 29 and I think there's upside, say Tony's missing one of the games because of a ban, I think Tony to Ings right there, just do it for the week and then potentially move it on. Yeah, possibly. You got a few tougher fixtures after that as well, actually, Suj. Blank 28, single 29. These are the 2 really to probably avoid. So don't play in 28 and only have a single game week in 29. There's 2. Fulham is 1 and Manchester City is the other. Other than Haaland, I'm not sure how people wildcard this week and have anything else from City.
Yeah, agreed.
There's every chance I won't. And although like Manor Solomon, he scored again the other night, didn't he? 4 in 4. He's showing good stuff at 4.9. You pay a little bit more for a Brighton player at the moment in that midfield area, and you're getting extra fixtures all over the shop, right?
Surely at some point,
they do have some good fixtures after the break, though. Fulham, they do. And obviously they will have an extra fixture at some point against Liverpool. But it's worth saying again, if they doubled in 34, it's City and Liverpool would be their double. So, and Liverpool would be away, so it wouldn't particularly be great. Likely double is 34 and 37, just to repeat. So City and Brighton highly likely to double in both. So will Manchester United. If it's not Manchester United, Fulham will do that. Other teams who will have a double in 34 or 37 confirmed. Liverpool and West Ham plus Chelsea or Leeds. There are 2 teams who I think will play in 32 and likely have a double in 34. Those are Liverpool and West Ham. Half this league is not going to double in the second half of this season. Odds after game week 29, I should say. More than half. You could almost break that right there from 29 onwards and just break your thinking into those. How many teams did I mention? 8. City, Brighton. Wait, it's not even that, is it? 6. 6. City, Brighton, and let's say Man United as a favourite, and let's say Liverpool, West Ham, and Chelsea. You could break the end of the season from after the international break into those 6 teams. It's not going to be complicated, I think, for people to manoeuvre. The caveat is, for those who go, no, James, I am going to wildcard in 33. As I said near the start, absolutely do. Like, I can't see what position your team's in, right? So if it's the right thing for you not to do it at the moment, then obviously hold through. And I got to be honest and say, yes, I've had some bias in this because for me, under my strategy, it's so obvious to me. So there will be an influence when I'm explaining things that most of my mind is thinking towards what I'm likely to do, which, to repeat for the latecomers, is wildcard now, bench boost 29, and free hit would still most likely be 32, but with flexibility, obviously. Triple captaincy is gone for me. Having covered all that, Suj, what do you think now?
What do I think now? I think the listeners will be confused.com. Actually, I think it's quite straightforward.
This is the most simple it's been in any season now.
Agreed. I need to now figure out what my team for 27 and 29 looks like. So, for example, James, I think I will skip Palace and Southampton for the double in 27. And I'll go with Brentford and Brighton. Right. So if I'm comfortable with 2 Brentford and 2 Brighton, and I'll sell one of the Brighton in 28, then or maybe not. If I could just bench both of them in 28, then cool. That's 2 of my players. I want to keep my Arsenal. I want to keep Haaland. I want to keep Kane. So then it's a case of getting rid of everybody else that blanks in 28. So Pereira, I need to replace.
Yeah, someone like that is definitely going now.
Yeah. And then what do I do with Salah and Van Dijk, who are the other ones that blank in 28?
My current thinking on Liverpool at the moment, from my strategy idea, is, like I said, I think Haaland would be, he's not a definite for me, but if I don't have him in 29, it's priority for me probably to get him back quite quickly in probably 30. I should be in a position 29, I think, where I've got Shaw, Fernandes and Rashford. That would be part of my idea at the moment. I'd have the 3 Brighton. So then those weeks there, building towards 34, it's just target to manoeuvre back in City and Liverpool from there. So Liverpool play Arsenal with 30. Then afterwards, it's Leeds 31, Forest 32. And of course, if Liverpool didn't play Fulham for whatever reason they decide till 37, then the priority just becomes getting the right City, and then you come back to Liverpool. And I mean, to me, it seems very straightforward to manoeuvre.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be too tricky. I'm with you, James. I don't think it's going to be too tricky, but I'm more like that. The only reason to pull the trigger this week in game week 26 for me over 27 is if I think that I'm really tight on budget and that the team that I want in 27, I'm going to price myself out of if I don't go this week because of so many people pulling the wild card. That's the one thing I'm conscious of that I need to do for this week. Then I have to weigh up, if I go a week early, am I shooting myself in the foot because my 26 team is okay? Am I buying players that I don't want in that I don't want to really get in 26 just so I can have them for 27? Yeah, that's my debate right now. I think I'm likely to wildcard next week. If my team value is an issue, I'll wildcard this week. That's where my head's at right now.
One other benefit I didn't mention, obviously, wildcarding now. And it's interesting because it's contradicting to some of the stuff I've said in the past, where you want a wildcard as close to the bench boost as possible. But because of this little period where we got double, blank, double, to go in the week earlier, what does it do for you, Suj?
It gives you an extra transfer.
Exactly that. An extra contingency going a week earlier. And again, look, my team's in bad shape now going into this week, as far as I'm concerned. I know also it wouldn't be in bad shape next week, no matter what. So I'm conscious that I need to try and get it sorted now. That sounds like that's not so much of a priority for you. You said near the start your team's okay now, so
yeah,
give yourself some breathing space.
Yeah, budget's the only thing.
Right?
But I mean, we're talking about buying players from Brighton and Brentford and so on. We're not talking about needing loads of premium. So I think I should be okay.
No, but we should also bear in mind, I think on Brentford, we should also remember been 2 of the best teams in this league this year. Brentford lost 4 league games all season. Ben Mee's and probably I'd rather go Pinnacle or Henry, to be totally honest, if I was buying a Brentford defender. But he's the top scoring defender, is he, after Arsenal and Newcastle players?
Yeah.
Brighton assets, I mean, how good have they been, right?
Very good.
How good.
And cheap.
And they're all enabling and cheap. None of them are too expensive. They're basically all underpriced. So, you know, you can bench them for future weeks after the doubles and stuff like that. And obviously, you know, Brighton are. I don't foresee how Brighton won't have 5 double game weeks left from here. Surely Brighton are not going to lose to Grimsby and Man City lose to Burnley. That can't happen, can it, Suj?
I didn't think West Ham would lose to Manchester United and Tottenham would lose to Sheffield United, but
It's a little bit different, isn't it? I think it really, really is. On game week 37, I know a few people out there are still holding on to the idea of perhaps a treble game week right at the end. Look, in a game week 37, the situation could absolutely be manipulated to put, say, a Brighton treble down, where they go, right, tell you what, we're going to make, to be honest, it would need Man City and Man United not to be in the Europe probably the Thursday before, but you could manipulate in theory to make Brighton play Friday, Monday, Thursday in 37 and then the Sunday 38. I'd be staggered if that's the route they decide to go down. The only way I could see that really happening is, like I said, the Man City situation, where suddenly City is still in the Champions League semi-finals. They get to the FA Cup semi-finals and the police go, we ain't doing Man City v Leeds, which is why they should have put Man City versus West Ham into 29, just in case that was an eventuality. And I guess under that circumstance, somewhere City would have a treble, but please, like, we're less than 1% chance, kids, honestly.
Cool, James. That was amazing. Pat on the back.
Cheers, mate. Love you as always.
All that kind
I've
of
got
stuff.
to be honest, my head's not. I would share my wildcard draft now. I legitimately have not even looked at my team again since Tottenham lost last night because I wanted to get this sorted. So tonight is planning for me, and on the not the deadline stream tomorrow, I will have it on screen what the current wildcard draft is. I obviously have the right to change that should I want to, but I'll put up what my intention is to go with. Yes, it will be not the deadline stream tomorrow because despite the fact I've had so many shit away days this year, I got another one at Wolves on Saturday. So
lovely, jubbly. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you do enjoy the content, then we'd love to have you as part of our Patreon community. So you can head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. It's a good time to consider signing up because it's the start of the month.
And my planner, which gets an update like by the hour
at the moment. Exactly that. I need to keep downloading it, mate. So yeah, there's an Excel planner that James produces regularly that helps map out the fixtures, what the blanks are, what the doubles are. And many of our patrons find it invaluable. It's really good to have open in front of you when you listen to some of the chip strategy content, just to kind of help follow along with it. And we'd love to have you over there. If not, that's all good as well. Just share the show, tell your friends about it, and all of that kind of stuff as well.
One of the things that's really useful on my planner, sorry to big it up a little bit, some might have seen a screenshot I put on Twitter yesterday of me on the train with the planner. It's basically this rolling 4 weeks difficulty tracker. So you can look forward to like game week 30 after the doubles and go, right, who's hot and who's not for the next 4, for example. So you can see the picture further down the season. I mean, for example, now for me, over the next 4 game weeks, I've got Man City bottom. But if I look ahead to the period 33 to 36, I've got them top. And Liverpool have similar swings. I've got Liverpool bottom 27 to 30, but I've got Liverpool top 31 to 34 if the Fulham fixture gets added to 34. So I think that's a really handy tool that the patrons like as well.
Lovely, jubbly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do have a great weekend. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and ciao for now.
I absolutely think this goes without saying, but play it your way, people. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man, child.